Story 1. I fear amyotrophic lateral sclerosis the most and would go to a right-to-die state if it happened. My most logical and realistic fear is skin cancer due to my close family history. Story 2. Lewy body dementia is similar to Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and schizophrenia combined. It is extremely challenging and considered one of the most severe types of dementia. Story 3. Locked-in syndrome is often caused by a stroke or injury to the brainstem. It is a rare neurological disorder that results in complete paralysis while allowing the sufferer to maintain full consciousness and cognitive abilities. It is exactly as it sounds. You are locked in. You remain entirely yourself but are unable to move, speak, communicate, or express yourself in any way. If you are fortunate, you may be able to move your eyes and communicate through that method. Many individuals, despite the paralysis, can still experience pain and discomfort in their bodies. They just cannot move to alleviate it. You lose the ability to chew or swallow and require feeding assistance. Recovery is minimal, with only supportive care available. Learning about this condition has unlocked a deep fear within me. I am certain that some people with locked-in syndrome lead fulfilling lives, but I fear I would descend into madness immediately. Story 4. Being paralyzed, I broke my foot and had to be in a cast for 1 month, which left me unable to walk. This experience made me realize how important mobility is. The worst feeling is being trapped in your own body and dependent on others. No condition can be worse than this. Story 5. Anyone who had nearly been eradicated is making a comeback because of people who are against vaccinations. Story 6. I have a broken catheter in my brain, so I am most concerned about brain disease. I am also worried about kidney disease because I have spina bifida. Story 7. That disease causes permanent insomnia, leading to a slow and agonizing death from sleep deprivation. Story 8. Churg-Strauss syndrome is a rare condition that my mother had. She passed away from it at the age of 33. The coroner was very animated when discussing the details of her case at the tribunal. Churg-Strauss syndrome is my biggest fear. Story 9. I was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago at the age of 33. It was locally advanced. Now, I fear it may lead to being bedridden and needing a caregiver. I would seriously consider ending my life if I realized I was developing dementia or another degenerative disease. Story 10. Anything that breaks down the body is concerning. I watched someone who had Parkinson's disease for a decade. The progression of struggling to move and speak, until they can barely eat and need to be in a wheelchair with supervision, is horrific. Story 11. As many as a quarter of coma patients possess a higher degree of consciousness than diagnosed. Conservative estimates based on imaging tests suggest a range of 15 to 20%. Not only can they not communicate, but they are often left without any source of entertainment. Imagine not only having no one to talk to or hold your hand, but also having no radio or television or anything to listen to. Some hospitals have a policy of leaving a television on in the rooms of coma patients, at least. That's something, but knowing what's on television provides only small comfort. Story 12. Anything related to neurology concerns me. Both my grandmothers passed away due to neurological issues. I have informed my loved ones, including my boyfriend, that if I ever face a similar situation, I would choose to move on. Story 13. Anything that leaves me trapped in my body, stroke, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Huntington's, terrifies me. They are usually slow-moving diseases that chip away at your life until it is over, often due to an infection that goes unnoticed until one becomes septic, unable to communicate their pain. No thanks. When it is my time, I hope to go quickly. Story 14. Alzheimer's disease and dementia are concerning topics for me. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to run in my family, but I still think about it often due to my struggle with depression. I joke, half-jokingly, with my wife and friends that if I start forgetting too many things, they should put me down like Old Yeller, regardless of what I say, because by then I will have already lost myself. My mind has been key to my independence, health, and happiness for a long time. Losing that would mean losing my life, even if I were physically present. I would rather pass away with dignity on my own terms than be a confused mess in my own waste. I also don't want my loved ones to suffer because of this. I have never come across a testimony from someone whose parent died of Alzheimer's where the family felt happy about it. Recently, I experienced the worst bout of amnesia I have ever encountered. It is terrifying, and I cannot imagine living with that every day. It's like knowing on a factual level that I did this, said that, and went here and there, but the memories are just not there. It reminds me of how Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. I know she did it, and I can read about it, but I do not have those memories because I am not her. I usually have memories, but not from the past couple of weeks. I am just now starting to regain a sense of normalcy, and it feels like an indescribable resurfacing after having been submerged. In conclusion, anything that takes away my cognitive abilities, such as Alzheimer's, would be too much to bear. Story 15. Cancer. I have it, advanced stage 4. Not knowing how much time I have left with my teenage son is absolutely soul-crushing. Story 16. HIV and herpes do not have a cure. Since we are sexually active, we are all at risk, unfortunately. That is why condoms are my forever choice until I find the one person I want to be with forever. Then that fear will go away. Story 17. I'm not afraid of death, so I've made up my mind to commit suicide if I ever get a horrible, untreatable illness like dementia. What does scare me is getting something bad that doesn't quite make life unlivable, such as AIDS, or something that prevents me from carrying out my exit, like paralysis. Story 18. Dementia. I would rather die from cancer than spend a single second with my mind and self fractured like that, unable to take care of myself or even remember why it is important. Story 19. Alzheimer's is the scariest thing I could imagine, especially because there is a large prevalence of it in my family. Story 20. Prion, including Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, commonly known as mad cow disease, are absolutely terrifying. There is no treatment or cure. They are unkillable rogue proteins that destroy a person's mind, similar to the cordyceps in The Last of Us. Story 21. Locked-in syndrome is a terrifying thought, to have full consciousness but be tetraplegic, with the only available motor functions being the ability to move your eyes and blink. Story 22. Something neurological such as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Huntington's disease, Parkinson's disease, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is a slow and painful process. Recently, I watched The Theory of Everything. It was alarming to see how the man gradually became more disabled until he could no longer move or speak. It is a terrifying experience as the body shuts down step by step over the course of months to years. Story 23. Alzheimer's, cancer, and my HUS are going out of remission. I already have the last one, but I'm in remission and just terrified it will reactivate. Story 24. Definitely Alzheimer's. I watched my grandmother die from it a few years ago, and she was very young. I recently took a genetic test and found genetic markers for it from both of my parents. I'm afraid of when that will affect me. Story 25. Any form of dementia, Huntington's disease, and Parkinson's disease. Also, Lou Gehrig's disease or any other motor neuron disease. As a doctor, I have at least an easier way out. Not everyone is that fortunate. Story 26. My grandmother has dementia. I would never want to live with dementia or any of the other conditions mentioned. Story 27. Cellular degeneration. Dementia or Alzheimer's disease. The thought of losing my personality or basic functions terrifies me. Story 28. People underestimate how deadly diabetes can be. It is the irreversibility after a certain stage that scares people. Story 29. I have health anxiety. I find myself obsessing over extremely serious diseases whenever someone with a respiratory illness is near me. It is difficult to manage. Story 30. Dementia is distressing as it gradually consumes your cognitive abilities, and there is little you can do to prevent it. Story 31. Cancer affects everyone. I am terrified to take the tests and wish to be in a comatose state while awaiting the results. I informed my doctor about my fears, and she mentioned that she has a few patients who also refuse to undergo testing. Now, she is calling me to remind me about the tests. Story 32. Memory and lung diseases are profoundly distressing. It is horrifying to consider the possibility of outliving my mind or my lungs. My father and his father both lost their lung function at age 67, and it was painful to witness that happen to my dad. If I begin to experience a similar decline, I feel there is nothing that could prevent me from taking drastic actions. Laws that allow for death with dignity should be universal. Story 33. When I was younger, I used to be afraid of Parkinson's disease after watching a few documentaries about celebrities who had it and how it eroded them to a shell of themselves. Terry Thomas, a UK actor, and Dudley Moore, a pianist, comedian, and actor, had progressive supranuclear palsy. That fear has changed into hate since I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Story 34. Any autoimmune disease is concerning. It is alarming to think about my body attacking itself because it cannot differentiate between foreign and self. Story 35. Rabies. The copy that gets posted every time rabies is mentioned on Reddit, detailing what happens when it is contracted, terrifies me. Story 36. I'm not going to imagine that I will get a serious disease and waste time worrying about it. If it happens, I will deal with it as it comes. Story 37. I am diagnosed as a hypochondriac. So let's just say everything scares me. All of that leads to the inevitable. Story 38. Progressive supranuclear palsy is a devastating condition. It is similar to amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, but also involves dementia and a decline in cognitive functions. It is my worst nightmare. Story 39. Anything that disables any senses, mental abilities, or physical abilities is concerning. I can endure illness and pain, operations and medications. If it leads to my demise, then that will be the end of it. I refuse to suffer unnecessarily. However, if something cripples your ability to live or makes life unbearable, I believe most people fear those situations the most. In that regard, I likely fear serious accidents more than most diseases overall. Story 40. Alpha-gal. I fear it most because it is becoming much more common, and I live in an area with many ticks. Story 41. Cirrhosis combined with decreased or failed kidney function has always seemed quite severe. I do not want either of those to fail me. Story 42. Rabies is a serious disease with no proven treatment once infection occurs. Affected individuals may develop a fear of sunlight and water, becoming increasingly aggressive. The only option is to provide sedation to ensure comfort in the remaining days. Story 43. I provided a lot of long-term care for clients with advanced needs. I found both the clients and their families to be amazing and heroic in how they persevered and adjusted their lives. I feel truly blessed to have had a front row seat. I helped many people transition, but no one I cared for ever fully recovered. I did my best to make them happy, comfortable, safe, and loved. I worked with individuals experiencing dementia, scoliosis, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, multiple sclerosis, traumatic brain injury, Lewy body syndrome, cerebral palsy, Parkinson's disease, and other identified and unidentified conditions. I consider myself temporarily able-bodied. My work changed my entire perspective on life. I have concerns about the American healthcare system. Story 44. AIDS. There are many others. This one scared me as a child when we were still figuring it out, and it still does. Story 45. I have a constant fear of getting shingles. I contracted hand, foot, and mouth disease from my nephew, which heightened my existing fear. Story 46. MND and dementia. I hope to reach retirement without developing either condition because, at that point, I will receive my lump sum pension and will have saved enough to afford a trip to Switzerland if I am diagnosed with either. Story 47. Before HIV, AIDS. Now, long list, due to COVID, old vaccine diseases making comebacks plus joining the over 60 crowd. Story 48. Afraid of a bad fall and its consequences. I have heard several horror stories that resulted from a simple fall. Story 49. Stone Man. Eventually, you will have to choose whether you want to be trapped standing up or sitting down for the rest of your life, unable to move. Anything that confines you within your own body. Story 50. Stone Man. Eventually, you'll have to choose whether you want to be trapped standing up or sitting down for the rest of your life, unable to move. Is truly anything that confines you within your own body. Story 51. I had a cyst the size of a grapefruit on my pancreas, and there were major complications with the surgery that nearly cost me my life. I was on a ventilator for some time. They informed my mother that I had a 50-50 chance of survival and suggested she prepare for any outcome. What was worse than all of that was my confusion due to anemia, and they were doing everything to help me breathe. The helplessness of not understanding what was happening to me was the most difficult aspect. I wanted answers but could not comprehend anything. Story 52. Alzheimer's. You go through so much in life just to forget it all in the end. I see my grandpa in the early stages, and it terrifies me. I hate seeing him so confused and frustrated. I can't imagine what it feels like. I hope he's not scared. Story 53. Wegener's granulomatosis, also known as granulomatosis with polyangiitis, is a rare autoimmune disorder that necrotizes blood vessels. My mom has this condition, and there is little support for those suffering from rare autoimmune diseases. You just hope the treatment works. The pain can be absolutely unbearable. Steroids, opioids, and any pain medication you can think of are only effective for a limited time, and all of them are highly addictive. I have developed many germophobic tendencies after seeing what a little cold can do to her body. I visit the doctor annually, attend therapy, and avoid outside stressors since stress has been somewhat linked to autoimmune diseases. Story 54. Dementia or anything that causes me to lose my mind permanently frightens me. I am mostly scared of my relatives allowing me to suffer for years from the disease instead of letting me go. Being mentally unstable, I feel unable to express my concerns. Truly feels like a nightmare. Story 55. Ebola made me quite paranoid when it became widely endemic in West Africa. Hemorrhaging from orifices and skin does not sound enjoyable. It freaked me out much more than living through the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite Ebola not being a problem in Europe, Ebola is far deadlier than COVID-19. As for a disease more relevant to my life, I fear my liver cirrhosis the most. I am not happy that I have a shortened lifespan, but I do not fear death. I fear the suffering before death. Liver disease can be very difficult in the late stages, and I am not looking forward to enduring it or forcing my loved ones to witness my suffering. I just hope the worst of it does not take too long. Story 56. The experience where you suddenly lose consciousness occurs due to a malfunction in the brain. I apologize for not recalling the specific term. Story 57. Cancer. Your own cells are killing you. You go ahead and get chemotherapy, but it ends up attacking both the good and the bad cells. In the end, you die either because of the disease or, in most cases, because of the treatment. Story 58. Ebola has always terrified me since I read about it in middle school. Bleeding from every orifice until death is nightmarish. Story 59. Rabies seems like one of the worst ways to die unless you are one of the fortunate individuals who slip into a coma. Story 60. It's a tie between amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and glioblastoma. My dad died of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, so I witnessed that journey up close. My sister-in-law has it now. A close family friend was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and chose to take his own life rather than endure what he observed with my dad. A good friend of mine and my husband's coworker both died of glioblastoma. Again, it was awful. My heart broke for my dad. He was intelligent and funny, and the challenge with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is that the mind remains intact and fully functioning in a dying, paralyzed body. Story 61. Mental health slowly cripples the mind, then the body and those around you. It's like cancer. It doesn't care if you are an athlete or a couch potato. It doesn't care if you are rich or poor. It doesn't care about your skin color or orientation. Story 62. Lyme disease. Ticks are very small and hard to spot. You can pick them up while enjoying some of my favorite activities. Story 63. Prostate cancer. I watched my dad suffer from it, unable to sit comfortably after a big meal. It was a long and difficult journey that affected him mentally. I heard him cry before my mom took him to the doctor, where they discovered a tumor the size of a fist. It was hard to witness. However, he fought for 3.5 years. Story 64. Cancer and Alzheimer's. I feel that many in my generation, millennials, are getting cancer. Being that I have inadequate insurance, I am out of luck if I ever get it. I cannot believe they would let me die if I cannot afford treatment, but that is the reality. Story 65. Not a specific one, but anything that takes away my independence and makes me need other people to do basic things. Story 66. The condition that slowly, gradually, and permanently paralyzes you bit by bit leads to a point where you must decide what position you want to maintain for the rest of your life. You cannot speak because your vocal cords stiffen, and you lose the ability to move your tongue or jaw. Communication becomes nearly impossible. Your hands are paralyzed, eliminating the option for sign language. Even your eyelids may eventually need to be blinked by someone else, so you cannot even blink Morse code at others. This devastating fate can last for years or conclude within weeks. It all depends on when one of the following occurs. 1. The muscles in your throat shut down, causing you to choke on your own tongue. Your lungs and diaphragm shut down, leading to suffocation. Your heart shuts down, resulting in cardiac arrest or a stroke. All of the above. If I ever develop this disease, I hope someone in my family or among my friends will show compassion and assist in ending my suffering. Story 67. Alzheimer's, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and dementia. My grandpa died from ALS, and I get tested every 2 years. My mom has some form of dementia, and I am getting her tested to explore it. Story 68. Measles is making a comeback, and it is concerning. Initially, it presents with bumps and flu-like symptoms. However, it can destroy the immune system's memory cells, making previous immunity to other diseases, even with vaccinations, ineffective. This part of recovery can take 2 to 3 years. Additionally, as much as 10 years later, a person can develop encephalitis or swelling of the brain. There was a child who contracted measles at only a few months old from another unvaccinated child and recovered, but unfortunately died in middle school. Story 69. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. My father died from it. He suffered for 2 years before that, and it terrifies me that it could be genetic. Story 70. As a recovering alcoholic, I face the challenges of alcoholism. Every few weeks, I experience a nightmare about relapsing, and I wake up relieved that I haven't destroyed my life. My 3 years of sobriety mean more to me than all the previous years of my life combined. I am terrified every day that I might accidentally drink and relapse. I am grateful for this fear. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.